The impossible transmission. When the signal arrived. The observation deck of Station Kepler 9 was quiet except for the steady hum of life support systems. Dr. Amara Singh sat at her workstation, reviewing radio telescope data from the outer rim. She had been doing this job for 3 years, cataloging cosmic noise and stellar radiation. It was routine work, the kind that let her mind wander while her hands moved through familiar patterns. Then the pattern changed. At first, she thought it was equipment failure. The signal was too clean, too organized. Natural phenomena did not create mathematical sequences. She ran diagnostics twice, then a third time. The equipment was functioning perfectly. The signal was real. Amara leaned closer to her screen, her heart beating faster. The transmission was coming from a region of space where nothing should exist. No stars, no planets, just empty void between spiral arms of the galaxy. Yet something out there was broadcasting, and it was using prime numbers. She reached for her communicator with shaking hands. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for since the first radio was built. Contact. Real, undeniable contact with intelligence beyond Earth. Within hours, Station Kepler 9 was buzzing with activity. Scientists arrived from research vessels across the sector. Military observers watched from the corners. Everyone wanted to see the signal that would change everything. Commander David Okoye arrived on the morning shuttle. He was a tall man with gray in his beard and eyes that had seen too many things go wrong. He commanded the defense fleet for this region of human space, and his job was to prepare for problems that most people preferred not to think about. He found Amara in the communications lab, surrounded by screens showing wavelength analysis and pattern recognition algorithms. She had not slept. Coffee cups formed a small pyramid on her desk. "Dr. Singh," he said quietly. "Show me what we have." Amara pulled up the main display. The signal flowed across the screen like music made visible. It started 14 hours ago. Mathematical sequences, repeating patterns, and then this. She isolated a section. This is a star map. Not of their location, but of ours. They are showing us they know where we are. Okoye studied the display. Can we respond? We already are. The station's main array is powerful enough to send back. I transmitted a simple acknowledgement 6 hours ago. She paused. They answered immediately. What did they say? Amara's expression shifted to something between wonder and concern. They said they are coming. They said they have been watching us. They said it is time for humanity to join the greater community. Okoye was silent for a moment. Then he asked the question that mattered most. Did they say when? 30 days. The Council of Earth. Back on Earth, in a conference room deep beneath the United Nations complex, 12 people sat around a table made of recycled spacecraft hull. They represented the consolidated government of humanity, formed 50 years earlier when the colony ships first left for distant stars. They called themselves the Terran Accord, and they made decisions that affected 7 billion people across 15 star systems. Secretary General Maria Volkov stood at the head of the table. She was 60 years old, born in the first generation after the unification wars. She had spent her entire life building bridges between cultures that had once tried to destroy each other. Now she faced a new kind of bridge, one that stretched across light years to species humanity had never imagined. They call themselves the Confluence, she said, pulling up the translated messages on the central display. A coalition of 47 species spread across this region of the galaxy. They have been observing us for over 200 years. 200 years. Ambassador Chenli looked shocked. Since before we left Earth? Since before we split the atom, Volkov confirmed. They watched our wars. They watched us nearly destroy ourselves. They watched us reach the moon, build the first colony ships, spread across our local stars. They have been waiting to see if we would survive our own adolescence. Defense Minister James Abra leaned forward. His face was carved from dark stone, his voice calm. And their verdict? Volkov's smile was thin. They say we passed. Barely. They say humanity shows potential, but we are dangerous. Unpredictable. We need guidance. Guidance? Science advisor Dr. Yuki Tanaka's voice was sharp. You mean control. They did not use that word. But yes, I believe that is what they mean. Volkov pulled up more data. The confluence operates on what they call the harmony principle. All member species follow certain rules. No development of certain technologies. No expansion beyond designated zones. No warfare except under council approval. Complete transparency in all scientific research. The room was silent as people processed this. Then Ambassador Chen spoke carefully. And if we refuse? They did not specify. But the message was clear. Join willingly, or be made to join. They have the military power to enforce their will. 47 species, some of them thousands of years more advanced than us. Minister Abra's jaw tightened. How long do we have to decide? The Wanderer suddenly killed all forward momentum and began rotating to present its broadside to the enemy fleet. Every weapon on that side of the ship fired simultaneously in a devastating salvo that destroyed another wave of hostile vessels. The enemy responded with overwhelming firepower, and the human ship's remaining shields collapsed entirely. Valrix watched in horror as enemy weapons tore into the Wanderer's hull. Explosions blossomed along its length. Entire sections were torn away. The ship should have been destroyed, should have broken apart under such punishment. But it kept fighting. Through the chaos, Valrix saw something that would stay with her for the rest of her life. The human crew was conducting emergency repairs even as the battle raged. External cameras showed figures in armored suits welding hull breaches while weapons fire streaked past them. They were repairing their ship under active combat conditions, risking exposure to vacuum and enemy weapons to keep their vessel functional. No species Valrix knew would attempt such a thing. The risk was insane. But the humans did it anyway because their ship was still needed in the fight. The turning point. Torum's console showed new alerts. Commander, the Wanderer is venting atmosphere from multiple sections but the venting is controlled. They are using it as propulsion to maintain maneuverability without relying on damaged engines. Valrix understood the implications. The humans were so low on options that they were using their own life support reserves as fuel. They were literally breathing their ship into motion. And still they fought. The enemy fleet had been reduced to less than 200 vessels, but they were adapting to human tactics. The organic ships began firing in coordinated patterns, predicting the Wanderer's movements and laying down suppressive fire. Several hits struck critical systems, and the human vessel's main weapons went offline. For a moment, the battle seemed lost. The Wanderer drifted without main propulsion, bleeding atmosphere and coolant. The enemy fleet began to converge, sensing victory. But Captain Chen had one more trick. The human ship suddenly fired every remaining maneuvering thruster simultaneously, sending it into a wild tumbling spin. At the same time, it released its entire supply of nuclear missiles in all directions. The projectiles scattered through the enemy formation like seeds thrown to the wind. Torum's eyes widened. They armed all the warheads. Every single one. Commander, if they detonate simultaneously. They did. A star is born. Space itself seemed to scream as dozens of nuclear weapons detonated in a coordinated pattern that created a temporary fusion reaction in the area surrounding the battle. The enemy fleet was caught in a sphere of nuclear fire that consumed organic matter and metal alike. The temperatures exceeded anything the hostile vessels could withstand. The mining station's shields automatically raised to maximum as the blast wave approached. Valrix held onto her console as the facility shook violently. Alarms screamed warnings about radiation levels and structural stress. But the shields held, barely, and when the glare finally faded, the enemy fleet was gone. Every single hostile vessel had been destroyed. In the center of the destruction, the Wanderer tumbled through space, dark and silent. No lights, no power signatures, no communication. The ship appeared completely dead. Valrix felt her heart sink. "Captain Chen, please respond." "Captain Chen, do you read me?" Only static answered. Torum worked frantically at his console. "I am detecting faint life signs aboard the human vessel. Multiple sections have lost atmosphere but some compartments appear intact. They may have survivors, but their ship is dying. Send out rescue teams immediately," Valrix ordered. "Medical crews, engineering support, everything we have. Those humans came here to save us. Now we save them." Aftermath and understanding. The rescue operation took 12 hours. Centauri crews in protective suits crossed the void to the crippled human vessel, cutting through damaged hull sections to reach survivors. What they found inside shocked them. The human crew had sealed themselves in reinforced compartments when the ship lost power. They had emergency supplies and medical equipment. Many were injured, some critically, but they were alive and already working on damage control even without power. When the Centauri rescuers arrived, the humans simply nodded acknowledgement and continued their work. Captain Sarah Chen was found on the bridge, a piece of shrapnel embedded in her shoulder and her leg clearly broken. She was using a hand-cranked communication device to coordinate with her crew throughout the ship. When Valrix arrived to thank her personally, Chen waved off the gratitude. "Just doing our job, Commander. Though I will admit, that got a bit closer than I would have preferred." "Your job?" Valrix asked. "You are mercenaries. We have no way to pay you. You gained nothing from this battle except damage to your ship and injuries to your crew." Chen looked at her with an expression that was difficult to read. "We gained something more important than credits, Commander. We gained the knowledge that 300 people are alive today who would have died otherwise. That is payment enough." The delegation arrives. First contact. The Confluence ships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of human space exactly 30 days after their first message. There were 12 vessels, each one a work of art that made human engineering look like children playing with blocks. They moved through space with impossible grace, their hulls reflecting light in ways that seemed to defy physics. Commander Okoye watched them approach from the bridge of the TAS Defiant, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. Around him, crew members tried to hide their nervousness. They had trained for combat, piracy, asteroid threats. They had not trained for this. "Distance to lead vessel?" Okoye asked. 50,000 kilometers and closing. They are matching our orbit around station Kepler 9. His tactical officer's voice was steady. "Sir, their energy signatures are off the scale. If those are weapons, we would not last 30 seconds in a fight. Then we should probably avoid fighting." Okoye opened the communication channel. "Confluence vessels, this is Commander David Okoye of the Terran Accord. Welcome to human space. We are prepared to receive your delegation." The response came immediately, the voice translated by systems that made human technology seem primitive. "Commander Okoye, I am Ambassador Thane of the Confluence Council. On behalf of 47 species, we greet humanity. We come in peace, with hope for cooperation and mutual understanding." The voice was pleasant, almost warm. That somehow made Okoye more nervous. "We have prepared quarters for your delegation on station Kepler 9. Will you be joining us?" "With gratitude. We will transport our delegation to your station within the hour." The channel closed. Okoye looked at his crew. "Remember, these people have been watching us for 2 centuries. They know more about us than we know about ourselves. Be professional, be courteous, but do not assume anything." The meeting. Station Kepler 9's main conference hall had been transformed. The usual clutter of scientific equipment was gone, replaced by a long table and chairs designed to accommodate various body types. Screens lined the walls, ready to display whatever information might be needed. Security personnel in dress uniforms stood at strategic positions, trying to look ceremonial rather than threatening. Secretary General Volkov arrived with her delegation an hour before the aliens were scheduled to appear. She wore a simple suit in dark blue, the color of Earth's oceans. No jewelry, no decorations. She wanted to present humanity as serious and capable. Dr. Amara Singh was there, along with Dr. Tanaka and several other scientists. Ambassador Chen represented diplomatic interests. Minister Abra stood near the back, his presence a quiet reminder that humanity had teeth if needed. The aliens arrived precisely on time. There were 5 of them, each from a different species. They materialized in beams of light that left faint ozone scents in the air. The technology was casual, effortless. It was meant to impress, and it worked. Ambassador Thane stepped forward first. He was humanoid, which Volkov suspected was deliberate. Tall and slender with silver skin and eyes that held depths humans could not have. He wore robes that seemed to shift colors with his movements. Secretary General Volkov, he said, his voice perfectly matching the translated transmissions. It is an honor to finally meet in person. Volkov extended her hand in the traditional human greeting. Thane looked at it for a moment, then reached out and clasped it. His skin was warm, his grip gentle. The honor is ours, Ambassador Thane. Welcome to our home. The other aliens introduced themselves. Commander ZYX, a being that looked like liquid metal in roughly humanoid shape, represented military interests. Scholar Verum, whose body seemed to be made of crystalline structures that hummed with inner light, spoke for scientific exchange. There was also Mediator Kess, who appeared as a floating sphere of soft radiance, and Observer Quinn, who looked almost human except for the fact that his eyes were completely black and seemed to reflect things that were not there. They sat, and the real conversation began. The offer. Humanity has accomplished much in a short time, Thane began. You have overcome internal conflict. You have reached beyond your birth world. You have begun to understand the fundamental forces of reality. This is impressive for such a young species. Thank you, Volkov said carefully. We have worked hard to earn our place among the stars. And you have. That is why we are here. The Confluence wishes to welcome humanity as a junior member of our community. The word junior hung in the air like smoke. Dr. Tanaka leaned forward. What does junior membership entail? Scholar Verum's crystalline body chimed softly. Guidance. Protection. Access to knowledge that would take your species millennia to discover on your own. We offer to compress your development from thousands of years into mere decades. In exchange for. Ambassador Chen's voice was neutral. In exchange for cooperation, Thane said smoothly. Junior members accept certain restrictions. No military expansion beyond designated zones. No research into technologies the Confluence deems dangerous. Complete transparency in scientific and industrial development. These are simple rules, designed to protect young species from destroying themselves. Minister Abra spoke from the back of the room. And who decides what is dangerous? Commander ZYX's metallic form rippled. The Confluence Council. 47 species with thousands of years of collective wisdom. We have seen civilizations destroy themselves with premature technology. We have seen wars that sterilized entire star clusters. Our rules exist because we have learned from tragedy. How many species have you welcomed as junior members? Volkov asked. 32, Thane replied. All of them thriving under our guidance. Their delegation arrives in 30 days. They expect an answer then. Dr. Tanaka stood and walked to the window. Outside, the Swiss mountains rose against a blue sky. Somewhere up there, beyond the atmosphere, alien ships were already approaching. We spent 300 years learning to govern ourselves, she said quietly. We ended slavery, gave rights to all people, learned to share resources across nations and planets. We did this ourselves, without anyone telling us how. And they say that is impressive, Volkov replied. But not enough. They say young species always think they are ready for full independence. They say the graveyard of space is full of civilizations that thought they knew better than their elders. Abra's voice was cold. So they offer us a choice between servitude and destruction. They would call it protection and guidance. I would call it tyranny dressed in kind words. Volkov looked around the table at the faces of people who had dedicated their lives to human freedom. We need to decide how to respond. We need to decide what humanity is willing to accept, and what we are willing to fight for. The hidden truth. In a facility that did not officially exist, buried beneath 3 kilometers of rock on the dark side of Luna, Dr. Sarah Chen worked on projects that made other scientists uncomfortable. She was humanity's leading expert in theoretical weapons, the kind that pushed the boundaries of physics and ethics in equal measure. Her current project sat in a chamber surrounded by magnetic containment fields. It was barely larger than a basketball, but it contained enough compressed exotic matter to destabilize a star. She called it the Prometheus device, and it terrified her. Her security clearance was higher than most government officials. She reported directly to the Terran Accord's Black Operations Division. She knew things about human capability that would start wars if they became public knowledge. She also knew about the aliens. Her communicator chimed. Director Marcus Webb appeared on her screen. He ran the facility with ruthless efficiency, a former intelligence officer who understood that sometimes the best defense was the threat of overwhelming offense. Dr. Chen, have you been following the news? The Confluence delegation? Yes. What they do not know, Webb said carefully, is that we have been preparing for this moment for 30 years. Sarah looked at the Prometheus device. You want to know if we can fight them. I want to know if we can survive them. There is a difference. Sarah pulled up her research data. Charts and calculations filled her screen. The Confluence has technology centuries beyond ours in most areas. But they are also complacent. They have not fought a real war in thousands of years. Their weapons are designed for intimidation and control, not annihilation. And ours? Ours are designed by a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. We may not have their technology, but we have something they lost long ago. What? Sarah's smile was not kind. Creativity born from desperation. Every weapon we build is designed to fight enemies stronger than us. Every strategy assumes we are outmatched. We have been preparing for extinction since we learned to think. Webb was quiet for a moment. Can we win? Win? No. But we can make victory so costly they will wish they had never found us. She paused. The question is whether we want to pay that price.